Former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley is coming out with a memoir, and while she was promoting it, she made some pretty significant accusations about Rex Tillerson and John Kelly, who are no longer in the Trump administration. So there's drama, which means there's a new episode of As the White House Turns.
Some very big mistakes.
I asked for his resignation.
I'm disappointed in the Attorney General.
In Nikki Haley's memoir, With All Due Respect, she claims, quote, Kelly and Tillerson confided in me that when they resisted the president, they weren't being insubordinate. They were trying to save the country. It was their decisions, not the president's, that were in the best interests of America, they said. The president didn't know what he was doing. Now that is an actual excerpt from her memoir. And what she's alleging is that she was recruited by Tillerson and Kelly to be part of this rebellion within the Trump administration to kind of mitigate some of the damage that Trump's policies would lead to. Now, she talked about this a little more during a sit-down interview with Norah O'Donnell on CBS. Let's take a look.
Kelly and Tillerson confided in me that when they resisted the president, they weren't being insubordinate, they were trying to save the country. And then the Secretary of State Tillerson went on to tell you the reason he resisted the president's decisions was because if he didn't, people would die. Do you memorialize that conversation? It definitely happened?
It absolutely happened. And instead of saying that to me, they should have been saying that to the president, not asking me to join them on their sidebar plan. It should have been, go tell the president what your differences are and quit if you don't like what he's doing. But to undermine a president is really a very dangerous thing. And it goes against the Constitution and it goes against what the American people want. And it was offensive.
Now, Rex Tillerson has remained silent following his departure from the White House, but John Kelly did respond to these accusations by Nikki Haley. Let's take a look at what he had to say.
We asked them to respond. John Kelly tells Sunday Morning, if by resistance and stalling she means putting a staff process in place to ensure the president knew all the pros and cons of what policy decision he might be contemplating so he could make an informed decision, then guilty as charged.
So there's two things here. One is the games that Nikki Haley is playing, and then the second is the substance, and I think the substance is getting lost here, so I really want to emphasize that in a second. So Nikki Haley is trying to thread this needle, and she does it throughout her book. Hey, I'm with Trump. I can't believe people are betraying him. Remember, if you're a Trump voter, eventually vote for me as president. But at the same time, hey, I'm not with Trump. I don't agree with his policies, and I'm such a bold person for speaking out because later when Trump self-immolates, she wants to have plausible deniability and go, I wrote in the book that I didn't agree with the policy. And she does it on multiple occasions throughout the book. So, and then she says like, oh golly gee, me thinking of running? Oh no, it never crossed my mind. Oh, it didn't cross your mind. You're not thinking about it now. Get out of here, right? Nobody believes that. Totally scheming, lying, typical politician. That's who Nikki Haley is. We'll get back to that in a second as well. But now to the substance. Guys, we're losing track of the fact that there's insane stuff going on. Where his own Secretary of State thought, if I listen to the president's orders, people are gonna get killed because he's a moron and doesn't know what he's saying. Could you imagine if John Kerry said that about Barack Obama? Could you imagine? Could you imagine if Hillary Clinton said that about Barack Obama when she was the Secretary of State? It would have been the most explosive thing that ever happened, not only in Obama's administration, but in our lifetimes in covering modern politics. Oh my God, the Democratic Secretary of State said the Democratic president is endangering people's lives because he's such a moron. What, right? But now we're so used to, we're like, yeah, of course the president's an idiot, and everyone, including his Secretary of State and Chief of Staff, everyone knows it. Everyone knows he's a lunatic that endangers the whole country and the world. That's not a thing we should get accustomed to. Right. Look at John Kelly's statement. John Kelly's basically saying, if I didn't check him, he was going to commit illegal acts and get us in a world of trouble. That's his chief of staff, former chief of staff. And now finally on that point, for this portion of the conversation, John Kelly and Rex Tillerson, you want to grow a set?
Yes.
Okay, so what is all this dancing around the edges? Just say it,
Yes,
goddammit.
yes.
You wanna be a patriot? Then come out and say it when it matters. I don't care about your goddamn book 3 years from now, okay? What I care about is, you know there's a lunatic in charge. You know it as a fact. But yet you keep dancing around the edges, right? Just come out and say, look, I was in his administration, I dealt with the guy every single day, completely mentally unstable. We are all in great peril.
Right.
And that's the reality, and they all know it.
You're 100% right, and by the way, that includes Jim Mattis, who's no longer in Trump's administration, but it was abundantly clear that Jim Mattis had issues with the way that Trump was conducting foreign policy and how he was clearly breaking the law in various cases. You know, Jim Mattis is also dancing around it, and he's refusing to really speak out. Look, what is the point of you going to war to defend the country if you can't defend the country when it comes to this disgusting, crooked White House that is putting the entire, it's putting our democracy, our Constitution, everything in jeopardy? I mean, how do you not speak out against that? So like this whole thing, and this includes the anonymous op-ed, whoever wrote that for the New York Times and later wrote a book about it. You have no backbone and you're a coward, right? All these people who refuse to do the right thing are cowards, plain and simple. And it's incredible because they can't take the heat. There will be heat if they speak out. Yes, there are Trump supporters that are dangerous, they're rabid, whatever you want to say about them. But nonetheless, if you're willing to risk your life in war to defend the country, how do you not take a political risk in doing the right thing here and speak out against Donald Trump? How?
Because the thing that is most precious to them is their reputation.
Well, their reputation doesn't look so good right now.
Yeah, and their legacy inside the club. And one of the club rules is, if you worked for an administration, you don't speak out of turn. So I'd rather not break that rule or tweak that rule. I'd rather put the country in danger. That's what Mattis is saying, Kelly is saying, Tillerson is saying. They're all implicitly saying that exact same thing. By the way, I don't want to let Nikki Haley off the hook here either. She worked with Trump, and so throughout the book she says, well, I didn't agree with him on Russia. I think, and some things on Israel. I support Israel even more. Oh, please, neocons, help me to get elected president later. Don't worry, I'll declare wars on your behalf, and I'll target all your enemies, etc. She's 7 different parts where she's clearly, she says, about Charlottesville, I was outraged by what President Trump did, but I love the president. Don't get me wrong, okay? And all the other people are betraying. I'm not, but I want it on the record that I disagreed with him when I run for president later, right?
Right.
And then she says, well, how about impeachment? She says there was no heavy demand insisting that something had to happen.
Yeah, let me give you a little more from that actually. So do I think it's not good practice to talk to foreign governments about investigating Americans? Yes. Do I think the president did something that warrants impeachment? No, because the aid, meaning the military aid to Ukraine, flowed.
Now, what she of course conveniently leaves out is that it flowed despite Donald Trump's wishes. Congress got wind of this really illegal activity and said, no, we authorize that aid. You must send it, otherwise you're gonna be in a world of trouble. And he's like, God damn it. And then he sent it, just like with the Russia sanctions. He didn't wanna do it. And then Congress passed it 98-2, and they said, you will pass those, and he had to veto it because it was, he didn't veto it because it was veto proof. But he said while signing it, I don't want to sign this, and I don't want to do sanctions on Russia. Vladimir, with all the money that I borrowed from you, remember, I didn't want to do this, okay? And so he did the same thing with Ukraine, so he gets absolutely no credit for that. And then look at her words. It was just a heavy demand. What does that mean? I mean, I guess when the mob goes and extorts someone, when they say, well, we could break your legs or you could pay us. Hey, listen, it's just a heavy demand, just a heavy demand. She said, not good practice. Yeah, breaking the law if you're the president, not good practice, but you might be underplaying it a little bit. So Nikki Haley, I'm gonna add one last thing about her political calculations here, is the most standard slimy establishment politician. And look, Trump's a monster and he's put the Republican in danger, so yes, he is the worst. But these establishment politicians, the part that's more infuriating about them is the love they get from the mainstream media when they're like just a shade off from Donald Trump. Not much different at all. But the mainstream media are like, oh, Nikki Haley, she's okay. No, she's okay. She wants to start wars. She's a neocon. She'll do anything that Israel asks, Saudi Arabia asks, etc. She's okay, she's good. No, she's not. So what does she do? She's put in, this is the thing you're supposed to put in a book, like a moment where she was really emotional and vulnerable. I'm a real person. So she said that after the Charleston shooting inside a black church, where all those people were murdered, she said she had post-traumatic stress disorder from that, and she had uncontrollable sobbing, etc. Now, is it true? One, I'll go out on a limb and say, I don't know. I know everybody in the media will be like, oh, how dare you, a beloved establishment politician said it, it must be true. Maybe, okay? Or maybe she's trying to sell books and make herself seem sympathetic, and we know for a fact that she's a lying, scheming politician. Okay, but let's take for a second that it is true. So then what did you do about it? So that was done, that massacre was done with a gun. But you love guns because the NRA donates to your campaigns. And you don't do any gun control. So all your sobbing is totally and utterly useless. When you are in power, you aid and abet those massacres by cashing the NRA checks and making sure there's no gun control at all. So spare me your crocodile tears. And I'm not remotely interested. This isn't the mainstream media. We don't buy any of your crap, and that's what it is. So don't tell me that you're broken up about the massacre that happened in your state when you didn't do a goddamn thing about it before or after. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.